Welcome to Great Practice, Great Life by Atticus Incorporated. What if you could hang out with successful small and solo law firm attorneys, ask them about their successes and failures, their business strategies and mindset habits, then take an insight or two to guide your own growth in your practice? Each week, Steve Riley shares an in-depth look at how to work less while maintaining high client service standards, reduce your stress levels while growing your income, and find time to make changes when you are time-starved. Steve is a lawyer coach for more than 20 years and a former trial attorney. His goal is to provide strategies to help you balance your lives and grow your practice. Now, here's Steve.
Hey, Steve Riley, welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And today I have a renowned criminal law lawyer, but I love him more because he's entrepreneurial, not because he's a great criminal law lawyer. Just a really, really unusual guy in the criminal law field because he has done so many cool things to grow his practice and make an impact on the community. I'd like to welcome Adam Rossen. Adam, how you doing?
Hey, Steve, I'm doing so well. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited to get to talk to you.
It's great to have you here, and you've done some really cool things. And there's a lot of things I was talking to you about, from everything about how you market it to how unusual you are as a criminal law lawyer, but you really want to focus on one thing. And I think you and I met years ago at the W Revenue Workshop, and I just want to ask one question. Have you doubled?
Since then, not, well, let me see. It was 2021. Close.
Close.
But yeah,
Close. So we're close to doubling from 2021. And you've really focused on growth strategies. But if you could, because I don't want to take you too far off the topic of today's podcast, to give everybody kind of a sense of what you've done, where you're at, what your firm's about. And you've done some great content marketing. So just free range a little bit. Tell everybody your story.
Sure. And Steve, I do want to clarify. So in 2021 alone, we 3.5x revenue. So by the time we had the W revenue at the end of 2021, I think we're like double from there. But if you really look at, we're probably about 4x from 2020. So really cool stuff. So
Okay, so we came in right at the end of the 3.5x, and then we're on the.
right.
So we look back from the time frame that you did that. You used the number then, and you're close to doubling again. It's hard, and people don't understand this. It's easy to double when you're like going from 100 to 200, but when you go to a couple of million to a couple of million, it's a little bit more work. Like it's a little bit heavier of a lift.
Yes, it is significantly harder. Absolutely. So you always got to put some perspective on that too. But yeah, as I still have the workbook from that seminar. I thought it was a great seminar. It was just very slow, controlled, methodical thinking, actions. Like I really loved the way that you did it. And when Craig Goldenfarb invited me to go, he's like, "Oh wait, this one's with Steve. It's going to be a really good one." And afterwards, I thanked him for inviting me, and I told him, I was like, "Yes, it was excellent. It was really good."
Good.
So,
Thank you. I appreciate that. But go ahead and talk about your story, like how you built the firm, what you did, because you've done some really cool things.
Yeah. So, I mean, and as far as like entrepreneurial journey, I do talk about this a little bit. I mean, half my family, my mom's side, they were the less educated entrepreneurs, and my dad's side was the highly educated technicians. And in my family, like my nuclear family growing up, it's skewed more towards my dad because he was the breadwinner. He was a dentist and owned a dental office, but he was the classic Sarah's Pies in the E-Myth. That was him. He never had any associate dentist. He still did all of the cleanings himself. Brilliant technician, but not so great of a business owner. And it was always that fear from him and his side of, well, you're going to go bankrupt. You're going to go bankrupt. Or what if it doesn't work? When I was even as a teenager, like, well, what if it goes right? And I remember even being a teenager saying, well, Dad, you can market here and do this and do that. And it just kind of fell on deaf ears. So I had always that bit of a dichotomy between the two. But education was so focused for me. And growing up, I wanted to be either a doctor or a lawyer because I wanted to help people. It was kind of ingrained in me to go to school, get good grades, and be a professional. But also, I really wanted to help others. So it was one of those two. And after a semester of biology and chemistry at University of Florida, being in a classroom of 600 students, where I think that they are intentionally trying to weed people out, I said, no, I want to go to law school. And what really interests me is criminology and psychology. So I'm going to pick 2 degrees, get a dual degree in those, both kind of worthless without a master's, a PhD or law school, but they were very interesting to me. So that's what I chose. Went to law school. Didn't really know if I wanted to be, I wanted to be a litigator. So I didn't know if it was going to be personal injury or criminal. And I interned, I did a certified legal internship at the Broward State Attorney's Office, fell in love with it. I had 5 jury trials by the time I graduated law school. I won one of them. So I got a guilty verdict as an intern. It was so cool, so amazing. And then I started at the prosecutor's office. And I started in 2006. And at the time, I wanted to be board certified. I wanted to be a homicide prosecutor in less than 10 years, which was kind of unheard of then. And I just wanted to be one of the best trial lawyers in South Florida. And I only was there 18 months. And about a year in, I just realized I didn't like the politics. I saw police officers do very bad things, and I felt powerless against it to help people. I felt like I wasn't helping people the way I should have and wanted to. So at 26 years old, me and my roommate, who was also a prosecutor with me, we made the jump March 1st, 2008, and started our own law firm. And in some ways, it was we were too dumb to fail because at that time, now I understand this is almost 20 years ago, but I was making like $46,000 a year. No, I wasn't married, no kids, no responsibilities, which I think was probably the best time to do it. Because all right, so what if I did fail? Big deal, right? I get a higher paying job, and I knew what I just needed to make. And we did that together from '08 to 15. We're still really good buddies. We were actually texting yesterday, and he wanted to change, wanted to split, but we never grew during that 8 year period. We grew enough to not crawl back, but we never grew enough to hire staff or have a real business. I was becoming Sarah from Sarah's Pies, or in a way, like my dad with a partner. And once he wanted to split in 2015, that's when I said, all right, my back's against the wall. I really need to learn. I need to figure this out. I need to figure out how to market, how to grow, because I don't, I'm scared. I'm nervous, right? In some way, yeah, we had a cover for him and me, but, financially, but my safety blanket was also gone. If it's just going to be me, then I got to figure it out. And I just started diving into marketing and legal marketing. And then over the course of the years, that morphed into management, business development, growth. And just throughout the pandemic, we made some pretty good decisions. And, despite having the major fears of the pandemic. And then it kind of morphed into, okay, in 2021. And then it was like, all right, well, let's actually get a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. Let's get core values and decide what this is. And those have been our guiding principles. So, if you asked me in 2018 or 2019 what I wanted, I'd say, I don't know. I want to grow. I want to make more money. I want to be more successful. And if you ask us now, there's very deliberate, choices and a path forward. Whereas back then, if you asked me, okay, Adam, how do you want to do those things? I say, I don't know. I just want more. What does that look like? How are you going to get there? Right? Who's going to be on the team? I don't know. I just want more. So now we have it. And I've found that I really, as much as I enjoy the trials and being in the courtroom, I enjoy the business more. I enjoy the strategy. I love the strategy of casework, but I love the strategy of business now. And we've been able to bring forward really good attorneys who are able to do the attorney work as good as I do or did, if not better. And now I can try to level myself up for the business for the benefit of everybody on the team.
One of the things that you've done very well is that you've marketed, you've done a great job marketing. You've thought very carefully about management infrastructure. But the thing that you're really here to talk about today is the groundbreaking internship program that you developed. And could you explain where that came from, what the theory was, what you were thinking, all the history, and then why you're recommending other lawyers consider a similar model?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So as a prosecutor or a public defender, in Florida, they have a thing called the Certified Legal Internship Program, where usually your third year of law school, you can get school credits and you work as a PD or prosecutor, and you can speak on the record, you can handle cases. You just need to be supervised by a licensed attorney. And I did that, and I had 5 jury trials. And fast forward a few months, all of a sudden now I passed the bar. I'm an ASA, an assistant state attorney, a prosecutor, and then I get an intern, and I'm only 5 or 6 months ahead of this intern, and that previously was me. So people in Florida in our industry are used to having interns. And then when I started my law firm back with my old partner, we would get phone calls and people would say, well, hey, Adam, my neighbor's daughter wants an internship. Can she intern with you? Sure, no problem. And it was the just come hang out version. And even Manny, who's the managing partner of the firm, Manny Sarah, he's the managing partner of the firm. I was his high school basketball coach over 20 years ago. And before he went to law school, he interned with me and it was just come hang out. And over the course of about 10 years, especially, it kind of changed into, well, let's get 2 or 3 people to just come hang out. And then during COVID, everything changed. And what changed is people lost their summers. People lost their internships with a judge, with a firm, whatever, because everything closed down. And I said to myself, I said, well, look, if we are the business drivers, if we are the community relationship people that we are, the pillars of the community that we are and want to be, and have that impact, then it's our job and responsibility to take everybody and just give them the best, summer that they can have during this pandemic. And luckily, Florida reopened pretty quickly, but that's what we did. We took on 13 interns. Everybody thought I was insane. But again, it came from kind of that moral ground of, look, it's our responsibility. And we had fun with it because I had time to think. When I have time to think, usually good things happen. So we did a project on where the George Floyd murder, had just happened, Memorial Day of 2020, a Memorial Day weekend of 2020. And I came up with a project and I said, all right, interns, next Wednesday, block off 4 hours. I'm giving you a special project. And they show up and I said, all right, guess what? We're doing a law school final exam. You got 4 hours. Here's the instructions. We've been hired to represent Derek Shaven. He's charged with all these crimes, and I gave them the charging documents. I found the autopsy. This is the autopsy. Okay. These are the police reports, and you guys have the videos from YouTube. Take that and write me a memo how we're going to win. Don't take the easy route that, he's a monster and all this different stuff. I'm like, let's as attorneys, sometimes we need to advocate for things or people that we don't believe in. And I'll make it hard. So we did. And it was so much fun. And out of the 13, we had high school, college, and law school students. And and I ranked them against each other, like in law school. And the number one was a law student, but 2 and 3 were high schoolers. And I was so impressed. And they loved it. We had fun. We had a lot of teaching. We had a lot of Zoom depositions, Zoom court. So it wasn't in person, but it really morphed. And then I took that and I said, all right, well, what are we going to do next year? Oh my God, we can actually build a program. So we had some former employees, people that were with us then who helped develop and turn this into an actual program. And we started recruiting people. And then in 21 and 22 and 23, that's really what we did. And, SEO'd it up a little bit on the website. So we come up on the first page of Google and started developing like an alumni network of our interns and just taking on a bunch, whether it's 6, 8, 4, and doing it that way and getting speakers to come in as well. And then, so I always say that was the kind of version 3.0. And then the two amazing people that helped me, turn it into the official program, they both, moved on. And so last year we were at a bit of a crossroads because I delegated a lot to them at that point. And I was deliberate and I thought about it and I said, well, I love this. I love being a mentor. I've been very fortunate to have many people mentor me. And again, just time to think. And I said, I want to take this back. But instead of me running the day to day, I'm going to change it up because I just don't have time to run the day to day. So I said, I'm going to run the week to week of the programming component, the speaker series, and I'm going to add some programming. So now we book club, at least one book every summer. I'm considering bringing on a second. And usually we have weekly meetings, whether it's about criminal justice, philosophical talks about criminal justice. I'm the one coordinating speakers from, local, state, wide across the country. We're doing field trips to meet with judges, state and federal. And then the lawyers, they're going to be matched with their specific lawyers, and the lawyers are going to be managing the day-to-day of the intern. And the number one word that I use is immersive. Our interns, they're going to know by the end of the summer, they either love it or they hate it. There's no in between. And they're either going to say, oh my God, I want to be a criminal defense lawyer. we've had one or two say, "Oh my God, I love this, but I still want to be a prosecutor, and I think I can help that way." And that's okay too, as long as they can see what we do and really appreciate and understand it. Um, and then if you hate it, well, that's amazing because now you know there's something you totally don't want to, a career that we could have saved you from being miserable in. And last year was that version 4.0 where I really just took back control and um, we learned a lot from mistakes. So we now have a recruiting window. Usually January through March is when we recruit, and it's a structured program. So there's specific dates, right? Start dates, end dates. We have two tracks. We have a high school track that's 9 weeks this summer, and then we have a college and law student track that's going to be 12 weeks. And it's just so exciting and so cool. And we last year, after we were done last year, we actually gave them some surveys, and we spent a lot of time to be intentional about listening to the surveys, reading the surveys, and listening to the surveys, and really being intentional about how can we make it better? What did they like? What did they not like? And I think it was over Thanksgiving last year. I was really thinking, okay, well, what's the next version? How can we even tweak it a little better? And so now what we're doing is we're trying to have more of a focus on criminal justice organizations because sure, we'd bring in the Innocence Project to speak and different things, but now there's more intentionality behind it to really make this criminal justice focused and use this as a way to partner with these organizations because there's so many out there that I didn't know about, that people don't know about, and as a way to promote our internship, but also to connect ourselves and our interns with these criminal justice orgs. Because you might intern with me one summer, be so inspired, but then not know where to intern the next summer besides maybe the prosecutor's office or the PD. And so there's so many of these criminal justice organizations across the country that are doing amazing work. We wanted to be able to have that as well. And it just so happens to be it's great for marketing, it's great for branding, it's great for putting Rossen Law Firm out there on the map as a law firm that is more than just there to get paid by our clients to represent them, but has a part of a deeper mission. So it's all kind of gone full circle, and that's really the version 5.0 of this. That here we are today for the summer of 2025. So it's been a long journey, but it's been amazing.
Yeah, it's a long journey, but I want to take it apart a little bit just to help our audience wrap their brains around it. So you've been working on this particular project for how many years now?
Well, I mean, we've been taking interns for 15, 17 years, as long as we've had the firm. As far as the current, really the 3, 4, and 5, versions 3, 4, and 5, I'd say really since 2020, since COVID.
Okay, great. So you've been, and I totally get it. I mean, I've had an internship where, I basically showed up and hung out. And then I did the same thing when I was a lawyer practicing, had people show up and kind of hang out, but it wasn't really structured. And then you've really applied a great thought process to it, a great structure to it. You also mentioned the book club or the book club. So the book club's integrated inside the internship, or is that something in addition?
No, so it's integrated. So we've done book clubs with some employees about some leadership or management books, and doing that for a year or two ago really got me thinking and said, well, that was a fun experience. That was awesome. Why don't we do that with our interns? So there's a book written by a federal district judge out of New York. His name is Jed Rakoff, and it's entitled "Why the Innocent Plead Guilty and Why the Guilty Go Free." And it's more or less a harsh rebuke of the federal criminal justice system written by an active federal judge. And so I read that 3, 4 years ago and loved it and thought it was so fascinating and interesting. And I said, well, this would be a great book for us to book club last year. So we did. It was the first year we did it. I think it was 14 chapters. We did 2 chapters a week for 7 weeks. So it wasn't the entire part of the internship, but it was a component of it. And we had some very heated spiritual debates, which was amazing. I mean, I loved last year just letting me asking a few questions, discussing, and then sitting back and letting our interns fight it out. It was fun.
Like, okay, here's the question. Here's the issue.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? And you threw it in there like raw meat and let them attack.
Yeah.
Uh, so if you were to describe to me, so you're saying, okay, Steve, I got this great internship program. Who would it be a good fit for? And how would I explain it to them?
Right. So it's going to be a great fit for anybody who's in undergrad or law school. Now, this is an unpaid internship. Okay. So we've, I understand there's certain limitations on who can accept this. Now, it's best for people who do have ties to South Florida, although last year we had a student from University of Georgia Law School. Well, and he moved in. Well, luckily his grandparents lived here. So he moved in with his grandparents for the entire summer to come to our unpaid internship, which I thought was just absolutely amazing. This summer, two of our interns have zero ties to South Florida. They're moving here on their own dime. Now they're going to room together, which is awesome. And they're getting basically a short term rental for the summer. And they're coming down because that's how bad they want it. So, number one, you have to know that if this is just something you want to dip your toe in, it might not be the best for you. You really have to have the means and the desire to truly go play all in, which is our fourth core value, and really want this. And if you do, that would be amazing. Okay. And then you would absolutely, love this experience. So that's something. Obviously, it has to be somebody who's very criminal justice focused. If you know you want to do business law or contracts or transactional work, then again, the passion won't be there because we require a lot. Um, it's it's definitely a 40 plus hour a week internship. I mean, our interns will know they're going to carry the briefcase every single day for 12 weeks. They're going to be fully immersed in our firm. They're going to be fully immersed with the cases. They're all in. So you need that. And that the process of really discussing that this year with my team and some of the criminal justice orgs has led us to a separate program that we're hoping to launch next year, which, after we continue to unpack this, I would love to talk about the mentorship program that we're going
Well, do you want to go ahead and just spend a minute or two talking about that, like what your vision
to.
for that is? I mean, you kind of dropped it there, and it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, so this spring, as we're talking to a lot of the criminal justice, one thing that I noticed and I became very aware of is, look, this internship, the summer internship program is elite. We're getting people from Ivies, undergrad law school. We're getting people from the top schools in Florida. We're getting people from the top schools across the country. So it's a very competitive, elite program where academics are a big part of it, but not the only part of it. And as we're talking with these orgs that are working with a lot of people that are not as fortunate to be attending these elite schools or maybe have had a different career path, career trajectory, I could tell that some parts of it were not fully aligned. So we had a lot of conversations with our team that was really helping me with this. And we kind of came to the idea of, well, look, let's offer, if we're going to be truly partnering with these orgs, let's do a paid mentorship program on top of the internship. And so, what we're going to start in January is we're going to have it be separate and apart from the internship. We're going to take on one mentee at a time. So, for example, it could be somebody who maybe went to jail, has a criminal record. Maybe they went to prison. Maybe they're just in an alternative school. They dropped out, had a kid early, young, who knows what, right? But there's definitely the non-traditional academic component, and they really want to be involved in criminal justice. But maybe they can't get a job at the clerk of the court or the public defender's office, or they have no experience and don't know where to turn. So we can have a paid mentorship program, again, separate and apart from the internship, different times. Maybe we do a spring and a fall, cohort, and we pay them. And best case scenario, it leads to full-time employment with Rossen Law Firm. Worst, positive scenario is that they've developed skills. It's amazing resume boost. And then maybe we can help them get a job in the criminal justice community in South Florida. So we just started talking about that. For the next few months, we have to focus on the internship, but it's something that we are going to be launching in January of 2026. So I'm very excited about that.
Hi, Steve. Sorry to interrupt this episode, but if you're new to Atticus and you're listening to our podcast and you don't understand how a practice advisor works, if you're curious on how to work with a practice advisor, I'm going to put a link in the show notes, and I'm going to give you a complimentary, no-charge practice growth diagnostic. So you can talk to one of our membership directors about how to work with a practice advisor. that if you've never had the opportunity to work one-on-one with one of our top flight practice advisors, I'm going to encourage you, as you listen to this episode, ask yourself, would somebody like this be able to help me and help me grow my practice and help me cultivate a great life? With that, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. I love it. I love your vision. I love your commitment to helping the industry, and especially young people who are trying to find their path in life, whatever that may be. If you were to give advice to another lawyer, regardless of their practice area, and give them advice that would save them the 15 years of trial and error that you've done, how would you recommend they set up? What would be the bare bones structure? What would you consider for them to consider in the structure of the program? Why would they want to do it? Just give some advice to other people who are saying, that sounds really cool, but that might work for Adam because he's a big shot criminal law lawyer and he's in South Florida. It won't work for me in Illinois or Iowa or California, wherever I'm at. Give us some advice on that.
Right. So it'll absolutely work for anybody and everybody. First thing is slow down, think it through, and be intentional. Just like any business
Oh, wait a
decision,
minute, wait a
just
minute, wait a
like,
minute. Let's do that really good because that's really great advice. What you
okay,
do again, let's slow it down for everybody. So say it again, please.
sure. So slow down, think it through, and be intentional.
Love it.
That's really the most important thing. And in order to do that, it's just like any business decision or any marketing initiative. You can just say, all right, wake up today and say, well, tactically, I'm going to do LSA ads, I'm going to do PPC, I'm going to do this, and just throw money or time at something. But that's a tactic. So slow down, think it through, and come up with the strategy. What's the why behind it? And doing an internship like this is not, okay, and I want to repeat, is not a way to just get free labor. Okay. That is not the point of it. So think it through. The feedback that we got, especially last year and this year from our interns and the candidates, especially this year, the candidates as we were interviewing them, they said that most of them were said, I've already done the shadowing, Adam. What really drew me to this is the structure, that this is an actual program, that this is hands-on experience. And I'm not just going to walk in every day and go, oh, what do you got for me? Let's just kind of hang out. Because most of them have already done that. So what do you want to get out of this? Um, for us, we want to inspire the next generation of criminal defense lawyers. And if we can't, and under that, we want, if we help inspire future prosecutors, we want them to at least understand what we go through, what our clients go through, the mental health issues that our clients go through, the substance abuse issues that our clients go through, what it's like to really walk, a day or two in their life. Okay. And so that's really important for us. So think about it. You're in estate planning. Well, what's your why? Are you an estate planning lawyer because that was the only job that was available when you graduated law school and you just kind of fell into it? Okay, maybe. Do you have a passion behind it? And if there's no passion or real reason, then maybe you shouldn't do an internship, right? Or if you don't, but there's still ways where you want to help the community, well then, think it through and just again be intentional about why you're doing this because it can be a lot of work. To do it the right way takes time and effort. The come hang out, and look, there is a place for the come hang out, but the come hang out does not require as much work, at least in the beginning. I would argue, though, that in practicality, when the intern's there, it does require a lot of work because you haven't planned or prepared anything. So it's just, do you want to front load it or do you want to back load it? But really just begin with the end in mind and be intentional about the strategy behind it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And there's so many lawyers that don't take action, which is our third core value, take action, because they're scared about a lack of perfection, or they're just scared that it's not, I don't know, that they're not going to do it right or whatever it may be. So if you want to do it, and you should do it because you're helping others. And I think as community and leaders that lawyers are and supposed to be, it's our job to help people.
Beautiful. So if you were to coach me through setting up one, what would be like the first 3 or 4 things you tell me to go do? You tell me to walk through the why, like, why am I doing this? you kind of tell me to look through the structure. I guess part of it would be looking at who my intern would be, paid, non-paid. So let's assume non-paid. And then you've kind of created a structure where you said they're carrying the briefcase, they're all in. Uh, what would you suggest for a summer structure for, let's just say generic law practice right now? I'm just a generic law practice. You'd say you want to do this so the first month, this the second month, this the third month. What would you suggest?
So if it is somebody with a maybe door law practice or multiple practice areas, it can definitely work. What I would suggest is trying to build a partnership with some local law schools and maybe even making some, a web page with some copy out there and targeting to the lawyer who or the law student, especially if it's unpaid, the 1L summer is going to be best or entering or maybe um, the summer after 1L or the summer going into your 1L. And I would target it more of, hey, if are you going to law school or in law school, but not sure of what you want to do? Well, come work for, or come intern for me where we have 4 or 5 different practice areas and you can really get a taste of 4 or 5 different practice areas to see what you do like, what you don't like. And again, hands-on experience of carrying the briefcase because we all know, well, lawyers, we all know that law school does not teach you how to be a lawyer. It just teaches you how to think like a law professor. And that's, in my opinion, that's it. So I would really target it then to the generalists who are unsure. And a lot of people when they go, I would argue the majority of people when they are taking the LSAT, applying to law schools, or even after their first year, don't know what they want to do and would love an opportunity to see 3, 4, 5 different practice areas in action, whether it's transactional versus litigation, whether it's all transactional, different types, or there's all litigation, different types, and just get that experience. But like any marketing, you have to sell it to them and you have to make it enticing. And it has to be both ways. Well, what am I going to give this intern as far as experience, learning, teaching, mentorship? And what do I expect out of this intern as well? And then from there, you put, I mean, look, our site, our page on that is first page of Google for a variety of keywords. We have a very good website, but it's not that hard because there's not a lot of people with websites out there for that. And even last year, we started putting a little money into Indeed and LinkedIn for that. So a few $100 here or there to promote it and trying to build some relationships with the law schools can go a very long way to get it out
That's
there.
fantastic. Let's talk. Go ahead if you don't mind. Share your law firm website and the internship page. And have you formally named the internship? Does it have a cool name?
So it's the Rossen Law Firm Criminal Justice Summer Internship Program. So, it's just kind of morphed into that. The firm's website is rossenlawfirm.com. If you go to www.criminaldefenseinternships, plural, criminaldefenseinternships.com, it will forward you to the page on our website that is specifically about the internship. We have about a 4-minute video that we filmed last year where you get to hear from our interns about a lot of the projects that they do and how it's prepared them for the next steps in their career. So that's really cool. But you look at this and you're like, wow, that's amazing. Again, that happened in year 16 or 17 of my law firm, probably in year maybe 14 or 15 of having the internship, and really in year 5 or 6 of like the latest, version. So it takes time. Um,
But what you've done is that you haven't thrown the internship out with the bathwater, so to speak. You've really looked at it, studied it, and every year you've improved it. You said what worked, what didn't work, how can we make it better? How can we have a greater impact? How can we structure this better so that not only we can learn from this, but obviously the interns can learn from this. So you've had a long-term commitment to this. This wasn't something that you just tried and then walked away from. What was it that kept you so resilient and focused on this program? Because it clearly is not a money generator per se, right?
right,
But
right.
but it's something you care passionately about. It's something part of your mission. What kept you so focused? What kept you going?
Right. So when you are, look, we're a mission-based business. And so we are a for-profit business, but I'd say profit is maybe number 3 on the list. Our firm's motto is we help good people when bad things happen so they can achieve their best future. Okay. We do that by being community and relationship builders. So we really believe that it's our job to be pillars in the community, to do community service, to help others when they're in need. And it's all aspects of it. It's not just what we do for our clients, but right, how do we, if we can help our community, and it could be our South Florida community, it could be the state of Florida community, it could be the, the entire United States or the criminal defense community. There's so many sub communities in there. I really believe that we it's our moral duty and obligation to grow the firm so we can be bigger to help more people and have a greater impact. And I've always wanted to have an impact, but then also have a program like this to then continue to have that impact. And if we can, have 50, 100, 500 alumni over the years that have gone through this and are interconnected. And again, maybe, right? Look, I was a 25-year-old prosecutor with immense power at my disposal without a lot of life experience. Went to private school my whole life. I grew up in a, like I said, my dad's a dentist. Were we ultra wealthy? No. Were we, poor? Absolutely not. Right. So I've had it better than most people in the world. And you don't really understand those things. You don't understand mental illness. You don't understand substance abuse until you really represent human beings and people. So even people who want to become prosecutors, great, but see what we do and see that we're not the enemy here, and that our clients are not the enemy. They're human beings, right? They're not, names on a file. They're not people who did something, who are bad people. And the more that we can do that, the more it's going to help the community. So everything ties in together perfectly. Didn't happen day one. It morphed over a bunch of time, but I think it all just works together. So I'm very passionate about that. I've had a lot of mentors myself, and I'm just very lucky to be in the position that I am here today.
Adam, I want to take a risk with you, or you're going to take a risk with me. You could decline to answer the question. What was the turning point? Because something happened in your career at a young time, probably first couple of years, it might have been the first 10 years, something significant happened where you had a breakthrough or a break in paradigm, let's call it, on how you perceived people. You have seemed to have lost what might be considered self-righteousness, and you seem to have developed a high level of compassion and awareness of other people. Like you said, what your mission statement is, been kind of good people in bad situations. What was it? What happened?
It's a great question. And look, I'm still a work in progress. We all are. That's why we invest a lot in coaching and time, money, everything. We're always trying to get better, personal growth, professional growth. Um, I would say that going back to when I was a prosecutor, we, it's interesting. I remember I made a comment one day. We're walking through the courthouse, and I made a comment to somebody, to another prosecutor. I said, "Wow, like, that person looks pretty rough and tough. That person might be, looks like a gang member or a big time drug dealer." And she looked at me and she said, "No, Adam, that's one of the drug cops of the street team, the one that goes into the bad neighborhoods and busts them up." And that was when I was maybe a young misdemeanor prosecutor before I was really handling those type of cases. And I was like, really? Like, whoa, okay. That's not what I would imagine a police officer to be like. Again, 25, 26 years old, probably just young, dumb, naive, really naive. Um, and then I go to felony and I'm trying more serious cases, but still a lot of them are just drugs. And, on one hand, it's the cops, the same street team drug cops are being accused of the same constitutional law violations by multiple attorneys in the same area. There's really not a lot of connection among them. It's like, well, on one hand, are these all attorneys conspiring to make these allegations and all these people, or is this really going on? And you hear it and you hear it and you hear it and you see it. And it's easy to say, well, I just don't know. But then when you start to have those doubts, and then the administration, your bosses put pressure on you to say, well, look, it's about protecting the boss man. And it's about being tough on crime. And it's about, what would the newspapers say? And you're seeing it and you're not, as a prosecutor, you're not allowed to drop cases when you think the cops are lying or when you think the cops mishandled evidence or violated somebody's rights, either knowingly or intentionally or unintentionally. And, just right, if a cop unintentionally violates somebody's rights, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Okay. But the case should be dropped. And not having that freedom and flexibility and caring about people really started to weigh on me. And then there was an incident in downtown Fort Lauderdale, actually at the Fort Lauderdale beach, where there was maybe 10 of us young prosecutors. We were out celebrating one of my friends who got engaged. And long story short, the future groom fell asleep sitting at it was like a hybrid restaurant bar, club type of environment. And he fell asleep, and this big, muscular Fort Lauderdale police officer ran over to him and started dragging him out of the establishment. And we were maybe there was 10 of us and maybe there was 15 total people in the place. So it wasn't crowded, there wasn't a big deal. And they just easily could have come over to us and said, "Hey, look, your guy's had a little too much to drink. He's falling asleep. He's not throwing up anywhere or being disruptive. He needs to go home. Go home and take care of him." But instead they just dragged him out. And things kind of happened. There was a lot of heated exchanges. No one got arrested, but I stood up for my friends and myself, and I'm like, "You guys don't do that." And they're like, "Well, we can." And I said, "I understand that you can, but you shouldn't. We're non-threatening. I'm the biggest guy, and I'm 6'2", 220 pounds, but, you know, we weren't being rowdy, aggressive, or anything like that." And then I'm sitting there going, wow, if they're gonna treat us like this, we're well dressed, they're going to treat, of course, they're doing this to everybody in the community. And then, this was a Saturday night. And then Monday, we all get brought into our boss's office individually, and it becomes this type of witch hunt. And none of us got in trouble per se. But as they're, like formally in trouble, but as we're debating it and discussing it, they immediately took the side of law enforcement and didn't listen to us. They didn't take our side. And the whole thing was, we got to protect the boss man, the elected state attorney. And what if the newspapers found out about this and blah, blah, blah? And I'm just sitting there like, guys, you just don't get it. How can I trust these officers ever again? They're doing to us the same thing that all these other people are accusing them of doing. So at that moment, I knew I needed to leave. I just had to plan it correctly. So that to me, I'm sure there was a lot of other micro moments of just representing people through the years and being thoughtful and reflective and intentional. But that to me was a major, major moment, in my life and career.
Yeah, very clear. I really appreciate you putting it out there and sharing it, because it's clear that something happened. It shifted how you think, it's how you practice, how you live, and brings a whole level of awareness and compassion to you representing people. So it's fascinating to hear, because I could hear it in your, you said it. You're not. There's some lawyers that I've met over the years that grow to grow. Like they're like, okay, I'm gonna grow and I'm going to make X amount of money. I'm going to drive this car. I'm going to do this and that. And they're very, what I would consider great practice driven. They're very focused on the money side, and they completely miss the great life, which is the why. What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And you've intersected these two things brilliantly, where you have a clear mission and why about the firm. You've used the firm as a capability magnifier to make an impact. Yeah, you got to make money. It's not for profit, but you got to make money. And now you've integrated your values in coaching and developing and mentoring other lawyers, or young lawyers, young people. Well done. Very well done. It's a very beautiful intersection. It's a very beautiful connection of what I would consider great practice, great life. And no one's got a perfect life. That's how come it's great practice, great life. It's not, I figured it out. It's like, I'm figuring it out, man. I'm kind of bumbling along here and learning from experiences, learning from mistakes. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's very, very well done. I totally get it. I totally get it. I totally get what you're doing. I totally understand you now from a completely different perspective. So thanks for sharing it. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
As we start to bring this to a close, there's a couple more things I'd like to ask you. First, is there anything else you want to share about the internship? You're thinking about it or anything like that? I want to make sure I allow you to close that out.
If anybody wants to talk to me about it, I would love to. Again, it's, I think more, not everybody, but more lawyers should be deliberate and should right? Have this kind of impact or whatever impact you can have because it is important. And as lawyers, we are the pillars of our community. We're supposed to be. Being a lawyer is a great profession. It's a helping and giving profession. And a lot of people on the outside don't understand and don't really get what we do. So, but when we go to law school and we're in the trenches, like it is. I mean, it's an amazing thing that we do as lawyers. So if I can help anybody help themselves, help their community, help other people, I would love to.
Now, you've also got a fantastic YouTube channel and podcast. So why don't you talk about how people can reach out to you, the social media references that you want to share. So how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. So the best way would be LinkedIn. You can email me or find me on LinkedIn. I'm really trying to be more deliberate about being active on LinkedIn. I've really started to understand the power of it, what that can really do for professionals, business owners, and thought leaders in the space. My email is adam@rossenlawfirm.com. I, 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 again, I've been so fortunate to have many mentors in my life that anything I can do to help others, I absolutely will. We have a great podcast. It's called Success in South Florida. And so, at some point, do I want to do more of a national type, show where I can get all these great people I know from across the country? Yes. But for right now, it's hyper focused on South Florida. We're really diving deep into the journey of people that are doing really cool things. We have some lawyers on, but not everybody. And maybe a third or so are lawyers, a third to half, and just learning about how they've got to where they've gotten. And we're about 50 episodes in, and it's been really amazing because I get to get so much advice from all these people doing really cool things. And then our YouTube channel, we do, I think, a pretty good job. We can still do a better job, and we're working on it. But we have a lot of information out there on our YouTube channel. It really it's grown quite a bit from just having not necessarily commercial type videos, but having 8 to 20 minutes where we deep dive into a bunch of variety of topics and are giving really good information. And it's become a great marketing tool for us. A lot of people find us online and then hire us from our YouTube channel.
Yeah, you have a great YouTube channel. It's one of the things I loved about your content marketing. So let's go ahead. I'm going to ask you a couple of closing questions here. Great job, by the way. I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I like thanking you for the contribution. You're arguing for something that I'm a big fan of in the legal industry, which is repositioning ourselves and really appreciating what a privilege it is to advocate for other people who may not have the power or the capability or the understanding how to advocate for themselves. It's such a cool thing to do. It's such an amazing way to live one's life. Yes, you can make a good living, but sometimes the good living gets confused with the mission driven purpose of a lawyer, which is what you've agreed to do, which is sometimes confusing. It gets confusing in this modern time. So here's my question. What does a great practice look like to you? What does a great life look like to you? And just kind of free range on that, riff on that. What does that look like to you now after 20 years of building? What's that look like?
Right. So, and understand anybody listening to this, right? It's got to be different for everybody. So, I've definitely been thinking about this quite a bit over the years. So, I'm out of casework. I I can be involved in our DUI manslaughters and our most serious type of cases, our murders from maybe a third chair, wise old man helping out. And I like that, so I can. But now I don't have to be at a judge's beck and call. If I want to go to a conference, I can go to a conference. If I want to go on vacation, I can go on vacation because I'm not carrying the briefcase every single day into court and worrying about some judge who's going to say, no, you must go to trial this week and not next week. Well, why, judge? And they, because I'm the judge and I want to move this case. So that's one thing for me. When you build a team, and I've had this internal struggle, right? Because growth is not linear. It's up and down, up and down. And do we want to be big? Do we want to be small? Do we want to be big? Do we want to be small? you know and I've always said, gone back and forth, especially in maybe moments of doubt or frustration or failure, with certain things, and say, no, I want to be big because I want to have the impact. I really want to have an impact on the community and on people. And the bigger we are, when things get right and there's the systems, the policies, and the people, then the more freedom I actually will have to maybe do another adjacent business, or two, or buy another law firm, or come up with some really cool creative ideas. So I don't, especially after COVID, I don't want to be tied down to one physical location. I want to be able to travel. I do have two young kids. So, we're can't just get up and move them, but be able to go away without worrying about it, without saying, oh my God, if I go away, there's not going to be any revenue coming in or who's going to do the work. And then being able to do what really excites me, which is come on this podcast. It's to develop this internship program. It's to build, create, plan, plot, scheme, and just have all those fun things. And really, to me, that's what it's about. People over the years said, "Well, Adam, are you ever going to stop working?" And I'm like, "Well, this is fun. I don't really consider this work. I mean, it's not fun every single moment of every day, but you know, I would love to be 70 years old and have my children be adults and take a active part in their interests, or if they want to go into business and do some cool creative things. They don't have to, but if they do, yeah, like 80 years old, sure. I just want to use my brain and do fun things. So that's, I decided a long time ago that I did not want to be that criminal lawyer who is in his 70s or 80s, slowly walking around the courthouse where everybody's saying, geez, he's going to die in this courtroom or this courthouse or at his desk. And just isn't it sad? I remember 30 years ago when he was young and spry and a really good lawyer. I just, I don't want to do that. But there's many people who love the practice, so they can work for me.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. And there's a few of those guys walking around and gals walking around, by the way. A
Yeah.
few of those guys and gals walking around. So if you were to give one piece of advice, and I know you've done this before with some of the young lawyers going through your internship program, to a lawyer listening to this, and they're like, wow, when I 20 years ahead, I'd love to be like Adam and doing what he's doing, but they're kind of struggling right now. The days don't feel so good. The cash flow doesn't feel so good. They're like, oh man, life is kind of not so great. Practice is kind of sucky right now. What advice would you give them?
Well, really slow down, be deliberate, and think it through. Begin with the end in mind. Say, what do I want my life and my practice and my business to be like? What do I want my future? That's number one. And then just work backwards. But also, one of the keys to, I think, my success and the firm's success is that we make tons of mistakes. We make mistakes every day. We're not afraid to make mistakes. And so many lawyers play it so tight, and every mistake will be catastrophic. They go to the worst case scenario, they freak out. And people are like, "Oh my God, Adam, he always gets it right." No, I don't. No, I don't. The firm does not. We've tried so many things that haven't worked. And that's okay. We've learned from it. So you really have to get over that fear of failure. I have no idea where I heard it, but it must have been about 2015, 2016, when I was really going through the beginning of this journey when my old partner and I split. And there's a few different acronyms for fear, but the one I like is false events appearing real. And I always say, look, false events appearing real. It's never going to be the worst. It's never going to be catastrophic. So just go with it. What's the worst that happens? Right? You're much better off trying and learning from it than living a life filled with regret.
Fabulous. I think we'll end it right there because I can't think of a better closing statement. Well done. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. Thank you for taking the effort. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your thinking on this, and really for the work you're doing for the legal industry. I just want to say thanks. I really appreciate it. We're grateful to have you here, and we're grateful to support you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks so much for having me. And look, we're still just getting started. I still feel like we're a startup. We still have that young hustler mentality in the firm. That's just kind of who our DNA is.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.